Hi, I'm Kit from Redbrick Sports, and today I'll be speaking to Ellie Vallance, who is the president of the University of Birmingham Equestrian Club. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the first
Yeah.
Brownfest post, or the first negative Brownfest post, which was on the 19th of September, so just before the start of Welcome Week. And that was essentially kind of criticising how members of the equestrian club were allegedly talking about other people's riding in quite kind of a harsh tone at the taste session. So what was like your initial reaction when you first saw that first post? How did it make you feel?
Well, first of all, you see something, and obviously when you've taken over running a club, it's hard to see because I've worked so hard this summer, and the rest of my wonderful committee have as well, to make the club inclusive and welcoming. And also we've got the added stressor of COVID on top, of trying to get the club to run normally. So when you've put so much effort into something and then you start seeing negative posts, anonymous negative posts, when no one's come to you with an issue, no one's ever mentioned that they've got an issue with the club, despite us encouraging people, saying, you can talk to us about anything, talk to another member of the club and get them to talk to us if you want that barrier of anonymity. When there's been no issue raised, to then see a post like that, it's upsetting. It upset me because, I care, I suppose that's anybody's natural response, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very understandable reaction. And then you went to kind of staying with this first post, you kind of replied in like comments underneath saying that you do need to scrutinise people at an early stage, even just in taster sessions, because it's not just a case of assessing people's ability for competitions, but it's a case of assessing people's ability so they can be put in the right group. So they're in a place that's safe for themselves and for the horses. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So with the trials, obviously you are trialling for a competition team. We're a books ranking team. We're in the top 10 in the country of equestrian clubs. So obviously your riding is going to get critiqued. We don't do it to people's faces. If we have to say something, because there's two of us, there's myself and our books captain who run trials. So there's just the two of us sat there watching. We don't give immediate feedback because we think that's a bit harsh. We don't make cuts in the day like some sports do because that's really harsh. But sometimes there is an issue of safety. Obviously, horses weigh about half a ton and they have a mind of their own and have killed people. And we obviously really don't want that to happen. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anyone to fall off. I don't want anyone's confidence to be knocked. So if we see someone riding and we think they really shouldn't be riding a horse that's that advanced, we've got to sort of say something there and then and move people. We've got to move people to a different group that suits their ability. We can't have people riding at a more advanced level than what they're at, essentially, because it is dangerous and you can get hurt really easily if you do something wrong. I know sometimes things will come across as quite harsh, but that's because if we need to make a change in a split second, we've got to tell you something clearly. And it might sound like we're shouting at you. It might sound that we're being very blunt. But if we need to get you to stop doing something that's very clearly irritating a horse that could escalate, because as committee members and as just general club members, we've all got a duty of care to watch for things like that and to make a change that needs to be made. So sometimes it can come across as really harsh, but that's just it. It's the nature of it. If we need to say something quickly for the sake of someone's safety.
And so they're all obviously really valid reasons for having to do it the way you do. And they might kind of sound obvious to people who are familiar with equestrian, but do you think you're making those reasons clear enough to maybe new members at the moment who don't have as much experience with the club?
So with the new members, we give them so much information before they start. I've emailed countless information sheets out to them. I did a Instagram live Q&A session. I've sent them I did another Zoom call pre-trials that people could join that was all full of information, of which I then, for the people who couldn't make it, typed up all the notes from it and then emailed that out to them. So this year particularly, we have been really thorough with making sure that people know. So we have sent out the riding school's rules, and we also tell them, especially for complete beginners, when they arrive at trials, we give them a lot of information of how to keep them safe. So, at their very first taster session, I told them very clearly, don't run around the yard, don't walk behind horses, don't scream, don't make any loud noises, don't have your phone in your pocket because in case it rings, you know, just basic safety things that, you know, people need to know. And yet we still had people, like, in lessons, if the horse would do something very, very minor, they'd scream, and we'd be like, you can't do that, you can't react that way. So we had those sort of minor issues last year, which, you know, we think we dealt with in the best way that we could, because we had given them a safety briefing, but if people choose not to follow what we tell them to do, then, you know, we're going to have to tell people again. But potentially it will be in a situation where it could be dangerous, rather than us just telling them for information's sake. So then you do have to tell them a bit more bluntly and harshly.
Yeah, and I guess there's only so many times, in so many ways, you can give people warnings before.
Yeah.
If you can then not listening, and then you have to go to it's going to sound a bit more harsh. Okay, now moving a couple of days on in, like, this Brownfest saga, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was more kind of negative posts about riders getting criticised behind their backs. One post, and I'm quoting, so it was one of the worst experiences I've had. There's another one which was just saying they're being put off from joining the club due to the Brownfest post, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
And you obviously responded to a lot of these posts. And one thing that caught my eye was you said that the club is working hard to make sure that these issues don't happen again. So in that, to me, that says that you're aware that there have been some problems in the past. So I was wondering if you could say a little bit more on that.
So the post regarding the one where it said it was the worst experience, blah, blah, that happened when I was in first year then. So I was in the exact same position as that person who made that post. And in all honesty, that year it was a little bit daunting. There was a bigger divide between the competition team and the development squad. And it is scary. We weren't given loads of information before trials. Obviously, we were given, you know, the general idea, the dressage test to learn, where to meet, that kind of thing. But I can see how someone who was maybe a bit more shy, maybe someone who isn't the most confident when they're meeting new people, may have been put off by that. So we were aware of that. Last year, we tried really hard to make it a bit more friendly and a bit more welcoming. And then this year, we think we've gone another step again. Like I said, I did the Zoom call for people before trials to give them loads of information, so they knew exactly what to expect, because I think it's that fear of the unknown, isn't it? If you don't know what to expect, then it is going to be scary. And I think for equestrian particularly, because we try and run trials in a way that is similar to our competitions, to really try and get the right people on the right competition teams for us. So you only get 10 minutes to ride a horse before you go in and do your trial.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it there, but obviously as you can see by some of the Brownfest posts, there's a bit of a negative stigma being created around the equestrian club. Is it frustrating for you that this whole thing is playing out on Brownfest, which is not only anonymous, but also in the public for everyone on Facebook to see?
Yeah, it's really frustrating. Really frustrating, because on Brownfest, it's very easy for people to spin false narratives. Obviously, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's experiences, because if that's genuinely what's happened, then that's what it is. We've got to take it on the chin and deal with it. But it's upsetting, it's frustrating. Obviously, Brownfest is somewhat moderated, but it's not. Obviously, no one's fact checking anything, so you can post whatever you want, essentially. So it's frustrating when we have given people channels, and this year we're going to publish an anonymous Google Forms like reporting sheet, so that if anybody does have any issues, then they can report it anonymously. But we are doing things to try and rectify it, so that it doesn't all get played out really publicly and give everybody a bad name.
Okay, let's move on another couple of days now. So not like the 25th, 26th of September, so about a week on from the first negative post. And the topic now had moved on to the weight limit that you have as a club. Just a few posts saying that people were essentially upset that they kind of weren't allowed to ride because they exceeded the weight limit. So can you explain kind of what you mean by the weight limit in the equestrian club and why you have to have that in place?
Yeah, so we have a 14 stone weight limit. That is recommended by the British Horse Society, which the 2 riding schools that we use have to be registered with. When you're a beginner, you're essentially a dead weight on a horse's back. You don't have the muscles, you don't have the core strength, you don't have the leg strength and the balance to be able to support yourself and ride lightly yet. Because it is a weird sport, you use weird muscles that you wouldn't generally use for it. So they have that weight limit in place from their governing body, and that is something that we as a club have to follow. It is strictly for the welfare of the horses. We're really not trying to exclude anybody. You know, we really are. It's one of those things, our hands are tied with it, because we could go to a different riding school that doesn't have a weight limit. However, they then wouldn't be affiliated to the BHS, which means that the horse's standard of welfare wouldn't be as good. And that's not something that we're going to compromise on as a club. So it is in place purely for welfare reasons. We're really not trying to exclude anybody. I know there was a post that said something along the lines of, you could have told us sooner so I didn't get my hopes up before they were shattered. Yeah. So we didn't initially publicise it. People signed up via the sign-up form that UB Sport published. Then in the very first email that we sent to them, that weight limit was included. So the first email that they got from the club, directly from the club, it had the weight limit included. So saying that we've stringed them along is not true. They've signed up via the sign-up form, which everybody does. You know, we had nearly 100 sign-ups on that sign-up form this year. Then in the very first email, we've said, this is a weight limit, this is why we've had it.
And just to kind of finish up now, looking more broadly and moving forward, I guess, what's kind of been the impact of this kind of all the Brownfest posts in the club, both in terms of the feeling around the club and then getting new members? Has it impacted that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I see it as a way that, obviously, I've responded to the post. People know that I'm president. I take it quite personally, because every post that's posted now essentially reflects badly on me. It makes me look like an awful person, and you know, it's hard. And I know that all of my committee think it's quite unfair that we're being judged by the standards of people in previous years, when that's not. It's not fair. You know, we know that we need to improve, but I think everybody does. I think as sports go, we're actually a very, very welcoming sport, and we're not elitist. I think people think that because we ride horses, we're all very up ourselves, but we're really not. It's tough because, you know, you're just trying to do your best. And none of us are getting paid for this. We all just volunteered to run the club and keep it running. And we've all got degrees to do. Most of us have got horses at home to look after. It's a lot. And we've had 2 weeks now of team trials. We've got our final week of team trials this week. The first week it was mostly returning club members, but last week we had it was almost completely new members, and they had a really great day, and I was so impressed with the standard of riding of everybody who came. And yeah, everyone seemed like they enjoyed the day, but they were all chatting, they were all getting on really, really well, and I was really impressed by the standard of riding. So by the looks of it, no one had a bad day, no one had a bad experience there.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear, because I feel like all societies and sports have enough challenges as it is with COVID. So yeah, good. It's not affecting you too much at the moment.
Yeah.
That's great, Ellie. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.